Dodging debris, Pitts catches sight of flight leader Rick Tolini high to his left. And about 5 miles off Tolini's nose, Pitts spots a glint.
And I'm thinking it's probably the other MiG-25.
The Bandit is nose to nose with Tolini and closing fast. But Tolini doesn't want to take a shot. At this angle, the bogey looks like an F-15.
So Rick decided he needed to identify this airplane, and he did it in an extremely unique way. He calls out on the radio with the assumption that if it's a bad guy, he's not on our frequency, is anybody an afterburner? And because we see a big afterburner plume coming out of this airplane.
Tolini's gamble pays off. There's no F-15 in afterburner, so that plume means he's facing a MiG. Tolini fires an AIM-9.
I see the missile come off. I also see flares come out of this airplane, and the heat-seeking missile is once again decoyed by flares. These two MiG-25 pilots were fighting very hard.
But the Iraqi pilot makes a fatal mistake.
Now the airplane turns what we call belly up to us, so we're seeing the underside of its belly, which is not a great place for the MiG to be. Rick selects an AIM-7 Sparrow radar-guided missile and fires it. That airplane just turns into a ball of dust.
The Iraqis have lost 2 MiGs, but the coalition has stirred a hornet's nest. Less than 100 miles away, another pair of F-15 pilots are about to square off against the most advanced fighters in the Iraqi arsenal. January 19, 1991. 4 F-15C Eagles streak through Iraqi airspace. Captain Cesar Rodriguez leads the flight. He's known as Rico, and his number 2 is Captain Craig Underhill. Call sign, Mole.
Our initial mission was we were defensive counter-air, and our job was to protect the high-value assets, tankers, AWACS, rivet joint, everybody who was in support of the offensive counter-air missions which were moving forward.
But 5 hours into their flight, command calls to inform them their mission has changed. An Allied strike package has hit its target and needs fighter protection for the push back home.
They had asked us to help with their egress so that when they're pressing south, we can make sure there's nothing chasing them out.
Rodriguez splits his flight. He and Underhill will cover the bombers, leaving numbers 3 and 4 to protect the high-value assets. On the way to the target, the Eagles pick up some activity on their search radars. A pair of planes to the northeast, about 60 miles away.
With the help of AWACS and other assets that are in the area, and through a collective means, we were able to determine that these are 2 MiG-29s.
The Soviet-built MiG-29 Fulcrum is a Mach 2 capable air superiority fighter, the most advanced fighter aircraft in the Iraqi arsenal. The Eagle has a better radar and weapons platform, giving it the edge in long-range detection and destruction of enemy targets. But the MiG's better thrust-to-weight ratio gives it the advantage in maneuverability and rate of climb. Eagle pilots were advised not to get into close-quarters turning fights with Fulcrums, if they could avoid it, especially since Iraqi MiG-29 drivers were known to be combat-hardened veterans.
They took their best pilots out of their F-1s and stuck them in the MiG-29 when they got those from Russia. So we knew their pilots were combat qualified. We weren't. Never been there, so that's an unknown for us.
Rodriguez and Underhill lock the MiG-29s up at 40 miles. The Iraqis break off and head east, trying to lure the F-15s within range of SAM sites near Baghdad. But AWACS quickly reports a new pop-up contact. Bogies, 330 for 13. Possible enemy fighters are at the Americans' 9 o'clock. Barely 13 miles away and closing at the speed of heat.
I feel at that point that that group is the one that represents the biggest threat to the strike package.
The Americans turn toward the west to head off the threat. The turn puts Rico about 1.5 miles in front of Underhill and about 1,000 feet below him. Underhill quickly gets a radar lock on one of the unidentified planes, trying to ID the bogey before the merge.
There's a lot of things you're doing with this hand and dialing gauges over here to make sure you're not going to shoot a friendly down.
We're all trying to do the first thing, which is identify friendlies to prevent a fratricide, and also equally as important is identify the hostiles.
With the opposing planes closing at Mach speed, there's only seconds remaining before the merge. At 8 miles away, AWACS finally calls the bandits out as hostiles.
By the time hostile is out of his mouth, I'm pushing down and shooting an AIM-7. It was just like a freight train coming away. It comes under my nose, starts pulling lead on the first airplane coming in.
At the same time, one of the bandits locks Rico up, throwing Rodriguez onto the defensive.
My defensive mindset is first to take my aircraft and get down below his plane of motion. So I want to get below 8,000 feet so that his radar is now looking at me or through me and includes the ground clutter.
Rodriguez cranks his Eagle to the left and dives, pumping out Chad.
By the time he starts turning, I'm watching my missile go, and here's Rico turning in front of me, here comes missile, plus or minus 200-300 feet right over the top of Rico's jet. So that was eye-opening for me, as imagine it was for him.
And I hear him call Fox. I turn left in my cockpit, and I actually pick up the engine, the motor of his AIM-7.
Rodriguez sees the smoke trail and follows it to the MiG-29, now 3.5 miles off his right wing.
I'm really kind of right now at the mercy of what that missile is going to do. And sure enough, the minute I picked up the silhouette, it couldn't have been more than 2 or 3 seconds later, and it's a boom.
And he goes splash one, and I turn my head back around and look, and sure enough, big brown cloud there.
Rodriguez climbs to form up with Underhill.
We're building our mutual support again. And to be honest with you, my first thought process is let's get the hell out of here.
The pilots are about to egress to the south and hit the fuel tanker when a new warning interrupts them.
The AWACS comes back again and tells us that there's another second contact 10 miles to the north. And again, I make the assessment here that we can't turn around and put this guy inside of a weapons engagement zone at our 6 o'clock. So, back into the fight.
Circling back toward the engagement zone, the Americans quickly pick the bogey up with radar. Underhill is here at 8,000 feet, about half a mile in front of Rodriguez. The bogey is here, 5 miles away at 10,000 feet. Underhill uses his radar's auto-acquisition mode to lock the bogey up.
I lock him up in auto guns. He does a convenient turn for me and breaks back left in a pretty hard G-turn.
The bogey's left turn exposes the aircraft's plan view to Underhill, a large target for a radar-guided AIM-7 Sparrow.
I lock him up, I turn, I put my nose on him, I go to shoot an AIM-7. Lights up as a diamond on my scope. It goes from a solid radar contact to a diamond, which tells me he's a friendly.
Underhill's heart sinks. If this plane is a friendly, then his first kill may have been a squadron mate. January 19th, 1991. After knocking down what he believed was an enemy aircraft,